Hey everybody, it's Lloyd with Perfect Crust Pizza Liners and Incredible Bags, and I'm super excited because my guest today is somebody I'm really wanting to talk to, and that's Serhan Ayhan. And Serhan, thanks for joining us from New York City, right?
Yes, thanks for having me, Lloyd.
Yeah, you bet. And part of why I wanted to talk to Serhan is I met him briefly at Pizza Expo, was really intrigued by my chat with him, but also there was recently an episode of the What's Good Though podcast, which is always excellent, with the host Idrif, and Serhan was on. Loved that episode. Looking not to recreate it here, wanted to check in with him on some other stuff, but highly recommend that people check out that episode. So let's start off with this, and that is kind of putting it in a context from time. You're just back from an event by a couple of days put on by Slice Out Hunger called Pizza on the Pier, right?
That's right. Yeah, that was this weekend.
Yeah, how was it?
Uh, it was a lot of fun. I biked over there from Queens, so it was quite a long bike ride there and back. But it was great. I was at the Uni station with a couple of other pizza makers. Miriam from the Za Report was there, and we had a bunch of other ovens. So Frank Pinello and Roberto Cavaruscio, and all these great pizza makers were out there. So it was a great event. Weather was perfect, a little windy, but you know, very sunny. There was
Yeah,
like a huge rainbow at the end of at the end of the day. So on the way I was biking back,
yeah,
I
and all
stopped.
for a good
Yeah,
all for a good cause. But one of the things I wanted to point out was one of my takeaways from the What's Good Though podcast was kind of like it's almost like you like what am I? I'm kind of around the pizza
yeah,
world, but am I a pizza maker? Just say,
yeah,
being invited to make pizzas with some of the greatest pizza makers
yeah,
in America probably means you're a pizza maker.
yeah. It's definitely it means a lot. You know, like I've kind of stated before, it's this gray area that I'm in. It's like, well, am I a pizza maker? Am I not a pizza maker? So like being invited, being asked to make pizza, kind of, you know, I would say it validates that I'm a pizza maker, um, but I tell people I'm not a substitute for like a pizza pizzeria owner, who kind of goes through so much and all the sacrifices they place to running the shop. I'm not the same as them. As I have so much respect for those guys, right? Like I just want to make that point from the get go right here.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so one of the things we share in common is having worked in family businesses. Your family owned restaurants, including a pizzeria, and you've
That's right.
shared some of the kind of context and experience on the podcast with Idrif.
Mhm.
And so my family had a food distribution company that supplied bakeries. So if you can think of, like a food distributor, but instead of supplying pizzerias, it was primarily bakery ingredients. And my parents got that from roughly the time I was in high school, and it was in the family for a long time. And um, you know, it, so I don't have exactly the same experience as you, but in
Yeah.
many ways, like like you say, all the respect. A couple things. I ended up
Very.
running that business as my parents' health kind of faltered. And one of the things it taught me was I did not want to be a business owner at that point in my life. I mean, there's huge sacrifices in terms of family time, and my parents never took a vacation or a sick day.
Yeah.
They knew where they were going to be every weekday, and
Yeah.
they saw that as a way to create kind of a better life for their kids. And I
Right.
really appreciate what they did.
Yeah. I would say very similar. I didn't really take ownership, I would say, like you did.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of a different path, I would say. Our businesses were always kind of the periphery for me.
Right.
My my first birthday, right, like was at one of our restaurants in Manhattan, right? So it was just something that was always there in our family. And as I got older, uh, even like I got involved after having even completed like my graduate program. Like so this is like way later into after my professional career was kind of like set on its course. But yet I was still kind of pulled in to help out when that help was needed. So for a while, right, I would work Monday to Friday, my regular job. So I've worked at places like Goldman Sachs, doing compliance work, regulatory work, and then Friday nights and Saturday nights, like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., all the way to like 5 a.m. I'd be working at the pizzeria, because that
Yeah,
was kind of the prime hours.
yeah. So our experiences actually are not that different. My kind of
Right.
quick thumbnail sketch made it sound like it was a straight line from A to B. And in my case, my parents were great from the standpoint of, so, I'm in high school, and, they did not try to push me into the business. They said,
Mhm.
listen, the main thing is you go to college and, get an education, and
Right, right,
we don't really care. We're not going to tell you it should be business. You just study what you want to study.
right.
So I studied geology because it's the farthest thing from baking. And, went to graduate school, all that other stuff. And, kind of was looking at having a career away from the business, kind of, helping, like you say, sort of on weekends or whatever,
Mhm.
wherever you can. So in that way, I think our experiences are kind of similar. And
Right.
one of the things that you touched on in the podcast, which I could really relate to, was as you're starting to do pop-ups and kind of play with different styles of pizza from maybe the Greek style that your family was
Right.
familiar with, you're looking to make some kind of impact on the business, but at the same time, you can't change everything. And
That's right.
here's the thing: is that was exactly my experience. Looking back at it with a little bit of age and context, I totally get, like, my folks they were doing absolutely the right thing. They had a going business. It was going great. Why should they let me, like, randomly do a 180?
Right.
And so you kind of have, like, you're trying to figure out where you fit in. And I could really relate to that.
Yeah, I think for me it was more, I wanted to improve in the areas that I saw, like, clear improvements could be made. But I guess I think from my family's perspective, it was just like, like, let's just tough this out until retirement, and we can all get back to, I guess I would get back to my regular career, and my parents can get to retirement and get back to normal, so to speak. But I don't know, once you're in it, it I don't know if it's the same for you, but it changes you and has an impact on your life.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of take the conversation about family business in an area that, again, um, you're a young guy and I'm an old guy. And so I've got, like, a slightly different perspective from
Yeah.
when I was your age.
Hmm.
And one of the things that, you know, this may have nothing to do with your experience, but
Sure.
I want to share from where I am today, my experience, and that is family business and succession. And there was no plan. My family, we
Yep.
never talked about it. I had a friend who's very similar circumstances, and he joked that his father's succession plan is he would leave the business feet first on a gurney when he keeled over in it, because although his son was, like me, an adult, there was no talk of kind of whether the son wanted the business, would
Yep.
work in it. What it was just almost forbidden to talk about it.
Right. Right.
So,
Same.
yeah. So, my experience, like, looking back at it now, and I'm now old enough to have, my kids are probably your age, Serhan. And so what I see is, from my perspective, is if I was to give uh, family businesses any advice, I would say find somebody who can help that conversation to happen and to help kind of existing conversational patterns to change. My son is bright and talented, and I'm so proud of the young man he's become. He's also a grown ass man, and he does. But here's the thing: is I find myself at different moments just going,
Hmm.
hey, blah, 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 and talking to him like he was 10, because it's just a pattern, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that pattern may not be the best pattern for when you're talking about family business succession. So if you can get someone who's kind of like not a mediator, but somebody who helps the conversation along. I think
Yeah.
that's good for everybody. It's good for the next generation, and it's good for the owners currently who might be looking at it a certain way. You know, they spent all those days working there, and they've got a view of how it should
Right.
look, and they may not understand kind of what the younger generation is thinking. I think that we could have had a much more fruitful conversation. And when I ended up running the business, it was almost like sitting in the back seat of the car for a ride, and then suddenly somebody just like throws you in the driver's seat and goes, "Here you go, start driving." There was no planning, there was no conversation. I was totally
Yeah.
unprepared.
Yeah.
And when I look at family businesses today, I want family businesses to succeed. And if there's the opportunity for younger people to continue if they want, I'd love for that to happen. Well, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I mean, for my family, I don't think there was ever an intention of like keeping the business forever, right? So what would the point of succession or those conversations, like what would be the point of that? I think for me, it's more about legacy. And that's why I do what I do, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we spent all that time, all those years, all that effort, right? Like, sure, like it paid the bills, it fed us, but like what remains after, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of prior to succession. I think for me, it's more about legacy.
Yeah, you know, I found that listening to you talk to iDrift, um, it's almost like you're at a point where, you know, you're not sure kind of what the future holds, and I get that.
Yeah.
You're sort of like in a place that it's not easily defined, right? There are things that you can go, "Hey, I'm a welder" or whatever, and it's like pretty clear kind of. And I think you're at a really exciting place, and I think that you don't need to apologize that it's unclear. I think you're intellectually curious, and you have a wonderful background of having you have operator experience. You have something I don't have. So I've now been in the pizza industry for over 20 years. You know, never worked in a pizzeria, but worked for, either a distributor or an ingredient manufacturer for that entire time. And it gives me a little bit of cred with an operator, not the cred that you have because you know what you're doing. But at the same point, I think you have such a valuable perspective, and that's great. I don't think everybody needs to own a shop to be
Yeah.
like the to be of value, to add value.
No, I mean that's what I tell people. Like, why is owning a restaurant kind of the end game,
Yeah,
right? Like I think there are other ways to participate in the industry or just like any industry, right?
right.
Rather than having like a brick and mortar shop, right? There's,
Yeah.
like the guy whose hat you're representing right now. He doesn't have a pizzeria, right?
But still much loved and adds a lot of value to the
Exactly.
community.
And
Right? Yeah.
he knows things that maybe a lot of pizzeria owners that they might not know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
In fact, I would say like that when I look at kind of, your intellectually curious mind, your creativity, kind of what you can add. Um, as far as I'm concerned, thank God you don't even own a pizzeria, because it would make it really hard for you to get out and see
yeah,
new things and talk
right.
to, people that artisan manufacturers or other operators about different styles or travel and see regional differences. When I was a salesman, there was a point at which I really struggled heavily with like, what do I know? I don't know what these guys know. But in a way, I knew different things. What they knew is how they make pizza in their shop.
Right.
They knew nothing about how anybody else makes it. There was literally, as John Arena says, the bucket with the line that shows you how much water goes in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that you're able to travel and interact with people, and that's kind of what gives you joy. And as far as I'm
Sure.
concerned, that's wonderful.
Yeah. But I think at the same time, I'm someone who doesn't like, you can only appreciate armchair philosophy so much, right? Like if you don't have kind of the boots on the ground experience, it's like
Right.
how do you really have the empathy or the understanding for
Yeah.
what those shop owners have gone through and still go through, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you know, taking that experience, but also the, I guess, more academic, analytical approach to it, right? So it's like a multi multifaceted approach, let's say. So I think that's what gives me kind of a unique position in the industry.
Yeah. And I think you settled on the word education, at least partly in the What's Good Though podcast, and sort of defined it or expanded on it, which at first, like education, that doesn't seem to capture what you're about. But I think when you kind of talked about, it's about, experiences and uh, could be technique, could be other things, could be perspective or
Right.
context. Then it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's more. I get it. At first, education kind of seemed like a weird way to describe the 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 powerful voice you can be in the community. And
Yeah. I think like when if I'm approaching a new style, for example, right, I kind of want to get like the whole spectrum of what that style is about, right? Like so like right now I'm into Chicago Cracker Thin, for example,
yes,
right? So it's
yes,
like,
yep,
reading about the history of it, but also, okay, but what about the flour that's like usually used for that? And like why is that? How did that kind of flour lend itself to that style? And why did that style come about? Kind of, it's been, I guess, thoroughly documented for New York style. There's there's a parallel for Chicago Cracker Thin, right? Like the tavern cut, it made sense during the Prohibition era, and just like getting the whole story. I think it helps you appreciate the style even more, and I guess something goes in to the pizza when you're making it when like you kind of take all that in.
yeah, yeah, for sure, absolutely. And in that way, uh, you're kind of creating a brand, next level pizza. Kind of unclear which direction you go with that. Like
Yeah,
you say, it's not really a pizzeria, but
it's
in
a
some
brand.
way,
I can
in
only
some
go
ways,
by my name for so long.
no, I think it's great, and the nostalgia theme, as you say, runs strongly in the pizza world, so that's awesome.
I think it does.
Yeah,
Um, like I mentioned on the podcast, my family's pizzeria, we had arcade games back in the day. Uh, Not in the later years, but like when I was younger, and gaming was just something I kind of grew up with. So I think the brand just kind of it brings something from myself into it. That makes sense. Kind of like my friend Nicole Russell, Last Dragon Pizza. Like that's something
uh-huh.
that she grew up with, and she brings to her brand.
Yeah, no, I think it's wonderful, and it's so fitting. That's what I like about it. Is you could have kind of chosen any theme, but to think of it as next level is like you're not operating on the same plane as we're yeah, we've got this landmark New York pizzeria, and I'm very good at it because I've made 10 million of the same pizza over and over again.
Right.
What you're talking about is something that's truly like a different plane, next level,
Yeah.
so I like that.
I mean, I guess it's different meanings to it, right? So coming back to the idea of succession and legacy, I'd always have on my mind when my family had our pizzeria, like, okay, what is going to come next, right? Like, where do we take this after? So that's part of it, right? Like, that would would be how I succeeded our brand, right? I took it to something else.
Yep. And what's on the near horizon for you? More pop-ups or
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Events, private parties, that kind of thing. Next week we have so actually I guess this ties in pretty well with the idea of succession. We're gonna do a my father won a grant recently, so my father liked he's an artist, let's say, right? And he would he would always be doodling, my entire
uh-huh.
life. He his entire life really. During downtime at the pizzeria, he would take like a paper plate and start just doodling on it, and um, he would never really use paper. It's always a napkin or fruit or pizza plate. So, but he would always be drawing, and even like during the pandemic, I think everyone kind of took up a hobby. That was kind of his hobby, right? His art.
Uh-huh.
So he won a grant from uh, the New York City Artist Corps.
Oh, wow.
So in order to get the grant, we have to have a public engagement showcasing his art.
Uh-huh.
So we're gonna have his art displayed at Philomena's
Nice.
in Sunnyside next week, and so it'll be his art there, and I'll be making pizzas there along with Dave Acachella, who's kind enough to allow us to host the art there. So
That is
I'll
so
be,
cool. I love
yeah,
it.
I'll be
Yeah.
the former pizza maker and current pizza maker, if you want to call me that,
What's
in our
what's
art
your
there.
what's your dad think of your pizza making? Is he a fan of these different styles you're doing, or is he like, what are you doing, or what's up?
um, I mean, I would say my family's proud of what I've done. Uh, I don't know if you were kind of inferring before about, your family wanting you to go into the business, but I don't think my family really wanted me to, you know, go into it just because of what they've seen and experienced in the restaurant industry. And
Uh,
it is supposed to be the tool to get us through
right.
uh,
Gotcha.
our education and, kind of funnel us into employment. But I think they're happy with the way I've approached it
Yeah.
and the way
Yeah.
the
To me,
direction it's going.
yeah, to me, what you've done is perfect. You've taken your experience and expanded on it. And what better legacy is there than that?
Right. And now he gets to have his art displayed because
Well, I hope that you'll certainly share on Instagram or wherever so we can enjoy vicariously that exhibit of your dad's artwork.
yeah, I'm excited. Uh, yeah, I'll be making the cracker thins. I've been kind of on the kick on as of late.
Excellent. Yep.
So yeah, it should be fun. It's like it's different and pays homage to what he's done.
Yeah,
So I'm happy. Yeah, happy. We're gonna get to do this.
that's awesome. That's awesome. We're about 25 minutes in, so I'm gonna let you go so that you can get on with your evening. We're across the two coasts. You're East Coast, I'm West Coast right now, so you're well along in your day compared to me. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but wanted to thank you so much. Like I said, really, it's it's almost selfish of me to do an interview with you because
Oh,
I just wanted to chat with you and kind of just explore some of the stuff that you talked about. Here's the thing: is I have this platform of these interviews through Perfect Crust, Pizza Liners, and Incredible Bags. Get to do interesting conversations just like this. Uh, but the thing for me is when I see um, just interesting minds that are doing great things in the pizza industry, especially young people. I just look at the pizza industry and look at you guys and go, "We're going to be okay. We're fine." So hats off to
good.
you. Love what you're doing. Please
It's
keep it
not no
up.
pressure on me, right?
Yeah, it's not just you, but you believe me. You're one of the guys that I truly enjoy, and hey, like I think we've all said it before. Pizza's a big tent, and at the same time, it's fun to see what that big tent includes nowadays, and just really happy that you gave us some time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right, Serhan, that's going to be it. I'm going to wrap up, and have a good evening.
You too.
All right, see ya.
Bye.